We begin with Trump's tough talk towards Putin and the threat of World War III. That's what the Kremlin is saying. Those are big words. Well, the war on the battlefield of Ukraine is escalating tonight. Also, so is the war of words between Trump and Putin. First, the fighting. This is a map that shows air raid alerts across Ukraine, 13 out of 24 regions, basically anywhere that Russian missiles can reach. Russia has launched 3 of its largest strike packages of the entire war against Ukraine in the last 3 days. A number of those strikes targeted the capital city of Kyiv, more than 200 miles from the front lines of the war. So this is some of the video, and you can see the explosions coming in to Kyiv. Strikes left 12 people dead. That's what Donald Trump is so upset about, including 3 children. So this is what civilians were experiencing over the weekend. And finally now, Trump is talking to Putin and about Putin like the war criminal he is. President Trump warned on Truth Social, writing that really bad things could happen to Russia. He also accused Putin of, and we'll quote now, playing with fire. So welcome change of tone, right? Trump feels played, maybe even embarrassed, because he trusted Vladimir Putin. And that's our Why It Matters segment tonight. So this visible anger from Donald Trump over the weekend was completely new. And what he was talking about was complaining about Putin and Russia's latest attacks on Ukraine.
I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him, but he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all.
Now, remember, Trump was talking about Putin, not Vladimir Zelensky. This is totally new, and Trump should be angry because Putin's old KGB tactics are making Trump look weak. Far from backing down, Putin is doubling down. Russia's seizing large plots of land across the front lines and responded to Trump's threats by mocking him. The Kremlin there says Trump is a president with dementia. So why are all these pictures up here? Because Trump now joins Bush, Obama, and Biden, who all thought they could deal honestly with Putin and got rolled. Putin lied to Clinton during the Second Chechen War. George W. Bush said he looked Putin in the eye and saw his soul. Bush thought he could trust Putin. Then Putin invaded the country of Georgia. Obama tried to reset with Putin. Then Putin invaded Ukraine, the first time in 2014. After Trump's first term, Biden said he would stand up to Putin. Putin invaded Ukraine a second time, and now Putin is playing Trump. It was a completely predictable turn of events. Trump and Putin started talking during the transition, and Putin promised Trump a deal, some kind of ceasefire. Shockingly, Putin keeps escalating the war while refusing to engage in negotiations, and Trump is now embarrassed, probably angry, that he can't deliver on his promise to end the war, despite making those bold, strong statements that he would.
If I'm president, I will have that war settled in 1 day, 24 hours. I would get a settlement in 24 hours. Now, it should have never happened. I will get the problem solved, and I will get it solved in rapid order, and it will take me no longer than 1 day.
So we saw how Trump treated Zelensky when Zelensky embarrassed Trump. Now Putin's getting some of the same treatment. And if you think about this in terms of coming up with a ceasefire deal, right now Ukraine and Russia seem farther apart than ever. Biden's 3-year policy was giving Ukraine enough to fight against Vladimir Putin and the Russians, but not enough weapons to win. It didn't work, right? And Biden refused to crush Russia economically. Biden talked tough on Putin, couldn't get him to the negotiating table. Trump tried to soft-talk Putin into peace by calling him his friend. And now Trump is realizing that neither Biden nor Trump's approach worked.
Well, the truth of the matter, to show what happened in Ruka, this warrants him. He is a war criminal.
I know him very well. Yeah, I think he wants peace. I think he would tell me if he didn't.
A man who, quite frankly, think is a war criminal. And I think it will meet the legal definition of that as well.
I've known him for a long time now.
I said, when are we going to end this bloodshed, this bloodbath? It's a bloodbath. And I do believe he wants to end it.
Oh, I think he is a war criminal.
I got along very well with President Putin. I got along with most of them.
So now it is Donald Trump's problem. Our Kelly Meyer reports from the White House. New sanctions on Russia could come tonight. We are told to stay tuned to Truth Social. But now is where it gets complicated for Donald Trump, perhaps, because MAGA and Team Trump used the America First rhetoric, we've heard all over and over again, to successfully turn Republicans' opinion, at least somewhat tolerating towards Vladimir Putin. There's some on MAGA world who are praising of Vladimir Putin, respect him. And now, if Donald Trump's going to take on Putin, he needs to find a way to turn all that around.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.